Okay, Joey, go ahead. If you're with us, go ahead.
Okay. You want me to give another story?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Well, before I give my own story, sorry, I was cut out. Before I give my story, I want to do a kind of I want to give a kind of reaction on your own letter. You know, those days when number one, they will tell you, they will sit you down, they will read psalm, they will sing song and remind you that you should remember the daughter or the son of whom thou art when you're going to school. Then it was a norm then. Then secondly, the fact that they were not giving us open encomium for whatever we have achieved was also a norm then. It never mattered. But they kept reminding us that we needed to put in our best and that the only legacy that they could give us is not house, is not car, patient. Mind you, today we have the internet that everybody
so distractions in their own forms by then.
But they were not as grandiose as we have it now. Let's face it. They were not as grandiose as we. There were distractions, but the distractions we have now, you can't compare the distractions to when we were growing up. So I'm not making excuses for your daddy, and I'm not making excuses for my daddy, but I know that today our children want affirmation. Today, they want affirmation. They want you to let them know that they're doing well, and it also helps them in their ego. Be that as it may, I just want to share another story about my dad. When I wanted to get married, my father was an Anglican by his own denomination in Christianity. So when I wanted to get married, he called me. He said, so I didn't know, sincerely speaking, I didn't know I was very important to my dad. I didn't know I was a favorite, kind of. I didn't know. So he called me, he said, where would I want to get married? And I told then I'd already moved to the Redeemed Christian Church of God. I said, Daddy, I really would love to get married in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. He said, I shouldn't worry, that he will give me that honor. Everything. He went to the pastor and asked several questions about the church and everything. And he said, well, he's a very important, a notable person. He didn't tell me, not tell me that, not even till today, he didn't tell me, but he told everything to my pastor. So, so the pastor called me later and told me that my father came and he was asking questions and blah, 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 blah. And he told him the reason why he wanted me to have my way in terms of marriage. And honestly speaking, I had to bend over backward, not because he couldn't have put his feet down, but because, my father trying to honor me, and I felt honored. So I gave back the honor to him. So many things I miss about him. Of course, eventually I had my wedding at the James Church, and the rest is story now.
Wow.
So that's another
wow. that's so wonderful. Before I bring Bolu on, we're just going to take a short break. When we come back, we would have Bolu tell us her second story before I get on with mine. We'll take a short break. Thank you. And listeners, you're welcome back on our slow parenting program on Nostalgia Media. Thank you so much as you're following us on YouTube, and Facebook, on Instagram, and via LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being part of the slow parenting family. Before we went on that short break, we had how Mrs. doing Shola's why he feels so fondly about why she feels so fondly about her father in allowing her to get married in a church of her choosing. Um, Even when usually, let me say how important that is. It's traditional. Ms. Adedoyin made it sound as if it was just her father was important in his church. No, that's not the only reason. Traditionally, okay, in Nigeria, southern part of Nigeria, actually, mostly the Christian part of Nigeria, you know, daughters always wedded in the churches that their parents attended. It was not just because your father or mother is an important person in the church. It was just like the norm that the wedding must happen in the bride's parents' place of worship. Okay. So for you not to understand how heavy that was for her father to have said, okay, my daughter, if this is what you want, take it. And it can say the reward. How many years after? Miss Adedoyin is a grandmother now. Okay, they are thinking, and she's here sharing that story. Okay. Before I call on Mrs. A quick one here. My parents are from two different parts of Nigeria. My mother was from the southeastern part, the Igbo Ngwa actually part, and my father was from the southwestern part, Yoruba Ekiti part. And so the Nigerian Civil War, I have told this, I mean, people who know me have written books and, that, separated us, okay? We remained with our mother throughout the period of the Civil War because our father couldn't be there with us. They would have killed him. His in-laws would have killed him. Okay? As a matter of fact, nobody dared call us by our Yoruba name throughout the period of the Civil War. My name is Adero. That's name was Adero, okay? Nobody called us by. To show how funny that was, my elder brother, his name was Adebumi. And we used Ade. But our cousins and relations, other relations, will call him Adi. Adendi. There's an Igbo name that sounds like that, so there's not Adi, So it was that terrible. But I didn't hear there was no contact whatsoever. But as soon as whatever name you want to name how that thing stopped in quote, because that war is still going on, hasn't stopped, really. As soon as my dad drove, if anybody has watched a war movie to see what happens for you to travel from one part of a war-torn environment to the other, maybe you would appreciate what he did. My dad drove from, it was a Volkswagen Beetle 860, LV 860. I can't forget it. My dad drove all the way from Lagos. The day he arrived in my mother's compound in the southeast, it was like, we're talking about our fathers caring about us, we're talking about, did not care about personal dangers for himself. It was just himself and his driver. came with a driver. They drove, and my world was like, this is like you people don't have fathers. Your children will tell themselves as you gather, and suddenly we're complete. Suddenly we're complete. Suddenly everything just was in place just by seeing him. Okay? I still wish he were here today. He wouldn't have been such an old even if we're around him. Don't mind that I'm almost 12, so but he wouldn't have been such an old man. It doesn't matter how old he would have been. I still wished he were here today.
It's all nostalgia now, isn't it?
It's always been nostalgia. We are not nostalgia media for nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Many of the philosophies that I hold today, yes, I give credit to my mom as well, both of them. But I think because of the heart connection, very deep connection I have with my dad, I tend to perhaps remember more my interactions and engagements with him than I would my mom. And it's everywhere, every place. I was almost like his tail, so he's repair I'm with him. Fixing something at the water pump, I'm with him. And I have two elder brothers, by the way. He's doing something at the changeover switch, I'm with him. Those days of cassette players, maybe cuts, and then he's using transparent tapes, to put it back very, very inkly together. I'm with him. He's doing something at the socket, I'm with him. Like I was always with him. So even my tomboyish, attitude that I had for the longest time, and my hands-on thing of wanting to, like my handyman experience, something is for never done it before, I would just go and try to do it. And I'm married to an engineer, and sometimes I'm like, you know what, you should be the one doing these things, really, but I just happen to do them because I saw my father. So it wasn't like he was teaching me or tutoring me, but just because I was always with him anyway, in his presence, automatically I learned those things. So many of my philosophies, my father would tell you things like make haste slowly. He always had those paradoxal sayings, He would say it's better to be loved and not loved back in return than to never experience what loving someone else is. He would say things like that person perhaps needs it you. So he was the village father. It was actually annoying. It still is. We would tease him and say, "You're not Jesus. Why do you always feel that, I say that there's something you can do to help everyone?" If I was supposed to have one as pocket money and we have agreed, he could just come and be like, apologize to you and say, let me now promise to give you back the 2,000 naira balance in a couple of weeks because so and so's son came and he's returning well and he needs this money. Trust me, he needs it more than you. Trust me, he does. And then he would, true to his word, that's altruistic nature of his. In a way, I used to tease him that he covered me a lot. So, my father will tell you some things you don't quarrel, you don't fight people over. You don't fight over money. You don't fight over land. If that person is someone else's boyfriend, please leave the boyfriend. If that land is being disputed over, if the money is, I'm like, Father, Daddy, you have really wronged me because many things that I should have fought for, that I did not fight for, because I was just blindly following, your philosophy.
But you didn't know how many things he saved you from. You don't know how many things he saved you from by
I agree with you.
Getting into fights that
he was just that cool-headed person. My mom would come into my room when it's dirty, and dirty girl, as beautiful as you are, see how dirty your room is. See your room, and use his finger, rub the paint, and keep talking to me. Then he will bend down and pick maybe one tissue on the floor, and he's still talking to me. He's not going to break his floor. Say anything untoward. As he's leaving the room, I literally cannot wait for him to leave the room so I can run outside and grab a broom and a packer, but he will never tell you your room is dirty. So he just, I remember when I just married and I had, my father actually had to sit me down and say to me, anytime anything happens, the first person that you tell is often the person that hears the thing, hear an abridged version, right? Because you can't repeat yourself in such detail anymore. That I beg, don't let it be me that you tell first. Tell your husband first.
Wow.
Because I noticed that it is me you would tell first. Telling your husband the abridged version. Tell him first. I know you so well that even when you're telling me the abridged version, trust me, I can almost, dream up, imagine, I've said how you would have said. He was such a freedom fighter in a way that was subtle with his pen. He used to write in the dailies then. My father would say, stand for what is right. And around you, as long as you are not in the wrong. My personality, of course, was, my imprints would show because of the kind of person that I am. The basics of it, the fundamental, the cause.
Wow.
I mean, up to my fathers at the same WhatsApp group, had the same,
Wow.
the same, like
Right.
treasures
You know,
in our
but
hearts, and we're
trying to take it away from you, but you know what? Just going through my mind.
Recording in progress.
All go to sleep. He now wakes up. He moves around. He goes to the kitchen first. He's now checking. Eggs or spoon.
So,
Not to shout. I don't want to stop with that. When we're boarding school, coming home, sometimes to be like, after function in school, you're not coming to do money function at home again. But we didn't. So it was until we now left home, we now realized that this man was actually true. I call us like, see all these things that Pops used to do for us. So we don't think that he was punishing us. See what we've become these days. So we even like when we are, because we usually go home for the Christmas. So anytime we want to go home for Christmas, we'll now like, okay, what are we going to give dad? We always think of him first before even thinking of our mom.
Wow.
Like, okay, what are we
Don't
going to
let
give
your
my
mom
dad?
hear. Oh.
No, I wish to tell her now that maybe we tell her, but we're like but I was all, because I know this. I remember the story of a story about your mom. I told you, I mentioned it. She will always tell us that allowed me to shout. So you know that this thing, you know that if you do this, your father is going to talk to me. I don't want him to talk to me. So we usually use that to now talk, just to this thing with her in a nice way, not as if we are trying to tell her that, okay, you didn't do your part. So I think those were that is one of the stories I can tell about my
Oh,
dad.
that's so it's not, it wasn't one story. You actually, you told many stories in
I
some
don't even know which of now.
beautiful. To know you I think you were having some technical issue, called you earlier. Now, can you just, that one story about your dad that you can't keep away from, you can't hide from the world? Can we hear that one story? Just go ahead quickly, briefly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yes.
Okay,
One
go
of
ahead.
the things, one of the things I want to talk about him is not really like a story, but it's like an attribute of him. So when it comes to education, he has a very high taste. So I remember when I was very young, while he was alive, he ensured that we had the best education when it comes to academics. And I remember when I was about to get admission into the secondary school. So it was there looking for one of the best schools to enroll me then, which he ensured I was enrolled in one of the best schools then. And after he passed away, indirectly, directly, he transferred, I see it as legacy. He transferred that legacy to my mom. And my mom ensured that she continued with her education. She ensured that we completed our education and we attended one of the best schools, both secondary school, university, and she also ensure that we have hand skills, both technical skills, hand skills. She ensure we have it. So when people tell me that it's you like taking this course,